Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Abby Talaria, coming to you live from Melissa Data's headquarters in Rancho Santa Margarita, California. Our webinar today is Get a Complete Picture of Your Customer with Listware for Salesforce. Joining me today is our resident data quality expert, Kevin Ubay-Ubay. He'll demonstrate the contact cleansing and enrichment capabilities of Listware by adding demographic and geographic data to your records. But before we jump right in, I highly encourage everyone to submit questions. You can type those in at any time during the presentation. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of the demo. Also, this webinar will be recorded, so if you miss anything or want to forward to someone, you'll be able to do so. So we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to hand off the mic to Kevin. Kevin?
Thank you for the introduction, Abby. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin, and I'm a data quality analyst here at Melissa Data. Today's webinar is another installment in our Listware for Salesforce series of webinars we've been having. Previously, we talked about cleansing and validation of Salesforce data, such as your names, phones, emails, and addresses in your contacts and leads in order to identify and remove bad data from your Salesforce orgs. Then after that, we had another webinar where we talked about ID verification as a way to prevent fraud and to determine the quality of your data. In this webinar, we're going to be taking a look at how we could get demographic information for our contacts and leads in Salesforce through our Listware app, and then as a way to get consumer info and understand your customers through better data-driven means. Let me get control. So to start off, so for those who haven't seen the previous webinars, we're just going to go through a quick review. To start off, what is Listware for Salesforce? Listware is a data quality app designed to clean, verify, and enrich your customer data within Salesforce. On the screen, you'll see a couple of benefits listed. First of all, this app can verify and correct addresses, phones, emails, and names. This in turn leads to better sales and marketing efforts, as you don't have to waste time and money dealing with bad and unusable data. We can also append in missing contact data on attributes, which in turn is another benefit, as this improves your data by completing it and allowing you more ways to communicate better with your customers and prospects. And then finally, Listware will allow you to look up demographic information for your customers, letting you know more about them. So this information would include data such as the date of birth, income, occupation, which you can then use to increase the effectiveness of your marketing efforts. So looking at this step by step, Listware will first do a check on your data by standardizing and validating, giving an address, phone, and email. So this is a step Listware does before we actually verify your data. So for example, with addresses, Listware will determine if the address is indeed deliverable, and then make adjustments to the address if necessary, such as adding in the zip +4s, the suites, apartments, and missing cities. With phone numbers, what we do is we check if those phone numbers are dialable and identify them as business, residential, or cell. Then finally, with email addresses, Listware can correct common typographical errors. So for example, on the screen I have Yahoo, missing the h.com. That's a common, so for common domain names, we could correct the spelling to yahoo.com. And then we also validate the email addresses up to the domain level by examining the mail exchange records on the email domain. And then after just checking and standardizing your data, the address, phone, name, and email, Listware will then do the next step, verification. So within the US and Canada, we can check if there's really indeed a match between a contact's name and address. So with our database of contacts, we can verify whether the name, phone, email, and deliverable address belong together. So basically, being able to verify within a contact gives you a level of confidence on how good the data is. The benefits of having something like this in your Salesforce org is that it helps reduce fraud, and it also gives you an indication of how good your data is. So now to our main topic, demographics. On the slide, you'll see a table of fields that Listware can return. We have the date of birth, the occupation, household income, etc. What we've been talking about so far with Listware is cleaning and verifying your Salesforce data. But now we can also learn more about our customers by adding in demographic data. So one of the benefits of having access to demographic data is the ability to understand and target your customers better. Traditionally, and the most common method of selling your services would be trying to reach as much people as you can. That's called mass marketing. Basically, you're trying to spread the word about yourself to everyone. And that may work to some degree, but the downside to that is that companies would spend enormous amounts of money and time doing this without any guarantee that they're reaching the right people and with no data to justify it. With demographic data, such as their income and age, you could then start thinking about which customers would be more likely to purchase your products and services and target them. Therefore, saving you the time and effort and increasing the likeliness of making a sell. Then as the data can help you target your customers, it can also help you find trends. So looking at it from the other way, we can also answer who are the types of people buying your services, and then accordingly, you can spend more time focusing on their wants and needs, thus improving the customer retention and loyalty. So as you can see, demographic data is pretty useful, very useful. And then as you can see in the demo, Listware will add this data for you very easily into your Salesforce contacts and leads. So one last thing before we get to the demo, we understand that there's users who want to process a large amount of existing records in their Salesforce org. For that, Listware provides ways to batch process records. You can start a batch job to process all records of a certain type. So we also support processing through list views. So in the list view, you'll be able to select which records to process through. Listware out of the box supports contacts, leads, and accounts. But if you want to process other objects besides those, such as custom objects, that functionality is available by getting in contact with a sales rep and asking for an enterprise key. That enterprise key I'll talk about in the demo, but basically it's the key you input into Listware, and it will allow you to set in your own settings and mappings for custom objects. So that's it for the slides. I'm going to switch into a demo now. I'm going to take a look at the Listware. So I'm just going to switch into a browser. So here up on the screen, I have my browser. I'm logged into Salesforce already. I have the Listware for Salesforce app installed. Just before I go around and start talking about this, I want to mention that you can find our app on the App Exchange. If you go to appexchange.com, do a search for Listware for Salesforce, and then you'll find our listing up here. You can see this is how our listing looks like. I just want to mention that when you install this, you will be able to do a trial. You get 1,000 credits. You'll be able to use this app for 30 days. And then you'll be able to test the things that I'll be showing in a demo coming up here. So just to switch back into Salesforce, I'm in our Listware app. I already have this installed. You can see in this app, there's a couple of tabs here. And the first one I'm going to be talking about is the administration tab. So the tab we're most interested in is the Personator tab, the US and Canadian functionality aspect of Listware. Basically, here is settings for the US component. We could only, right now, as of this moment, we return back demographics information for North America. So a couple of these options I talked about in the previous webinars. So the verify, move, and append actions. Some of these options, if you want to know what they are, I would recommend that you would check our previous webinars where we talked about these options such as the verify and append, these actions and stuff. But for today, we're going to be focused on demographics. And then the one option I want to talk about here is down here in the output. So by default, Listware won't have these fields selected, but here, if you want to get the demographics information back, you just check this checkbox next to demographics, and that will get you back the demographics fields. So that's the setting you want to get set in there. Next thing I want to talk about is our mappings. So during the slides, I talked about the enterprise key. So for those who need support for custom objects, besides the contact, lead, and account, you could request the enterprise key from sales rep, and then you would put it in here, and then it would enable access for other types of objects. Right now, I don't have an enterprise key, so what's going on here is we only could use out of the box. Listware supports these three types of objects: the contact, lead, and account. Let's take a look at the contact mapping. So you can see in here, I already had a mapping in here. In your inputs, you want to map in your name, phone, email, and address. So you can see from the contact, I already had the first, last names. I got the address fields mapped in there. And then in the outputs, for most users, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. You're going to be mapping in the same name, phone, email, and address fields. But one thing to point out here is that you'll see there's a couple more fields here in the output than in the inputs. You'll see date of birth, date of death, presence of children, marital status, rent owned, gender, household income. Basically, all the demographics fields here, you see that we can map them in. And then what I've done here for the contact is I created custom fields to store these results from our Listware app. And you can see I already have those mapped in. And then down here, you can also get the result codes for the US personator component. So basically, whenever you run a record through, we return back result codes, and those result codes will tell you if we made any changes to your data, if we appended anything, or it'll also tell you if your data is good or not. So that's the mapping. So to run records through Listware, there's a couple ways you could do this. Let's take a look at the setup. So I'm just going to setup. And for this demo, we're going to be playing around with contact objects in Salesforce. So one way you could process records through our app is you could use a Visualforce page that you apply to your contacts. So you can see here, I'm going to go customize. I'm in my Salesforce setup. I'm going to customize my contacts. I'm going to take a look at my buttons, links, and actions. And you can see here, I've overridden this view with a MD personator contact page. This page came from our Listware app. Basically, whenever I view a contact, this page will pop up, and then as you'll see, we can process records through the app. So this is the view overridden with a Visualforce page from our app. So if I go and just make a contact, so I'm just gonna create a new contact. So for this one, let me just put in a name. And then I also want an address in there. So just name an address, I'm going to create this contact. Now, after I create a contact, it's taking me to the view. And with the view, I've overridden it with a Visualforce page, our Visualforce page. So if I take a look down here, you can see now that we have our personator component added on to this contact. You see it already ran through, it validated the name and address. And then all these sections are corresponding to the output, those list of, when we were looking at the administration tab, there were a bunch of checkboxes there. So those checkboxes, if you want to see the results of the name parsing, you want to get more attributes about the address, phone, name, and email, that's what those checkboxes will turn on in what you see here. But if you scroll down, this one I'm not getting demographics. Let me see. Whoops. So what happened here is it didn't find any demographics information for this person at this address. What's going on here is I just typed in the address wrong. But let me go ahead. So in there I had 682, but what I want is so that's an example of what happens when we don't return back information. But let's try this again. So this time 683 Lemont Drive. It's on a page. Let's save this. Okay. So you see here the fields are being listed here. It's empty right now, but if you give it a sec, it's going to run through the app. And then there we go. So you see there the personal results. If we make any changes to your data, if we append anything, those are reflected back by the result codes. You can see that the fields here have now been updated. So we have the date of birth, presence of children, marital status, and so forth. So you have the income, length of residence, occupation. If you go back and take a look down here, So this Visual 4 page is now showing the results that we get back from the app. And then now down here, since I typed in the proper address with the name, now we're getting demographics information back. So that's one way, that's by overriding the view. Let's talk about the batch processing methods. So you'll see this tab up here, Listware batch process. One way you could batch process a bunch of records through is by creating a new batch job. So basically here, you pick which object type. If you had the enterprise key and you put that in the advanced mappings tab, then you would have the selection for all your objects. But right now, we have access to these 3 types of objects. So you pick your object type, contact. You pick your service. The one we're focusing on today, again, is Personator, the US, basically the US component of Listware. So you have this option here to update records. So if you want this Listware app to update your Salesforce records, you turn this on. Some people don't want that, so you can turn it off. But for most users, they want to update their addresses, get it clean, get the missing information appended in there. You turn this on. And you have batch settings here. This last option here is letting you indicate if you want to process all records. So basically, even if you process those records before, they will get reprocessed again. Or you can process all unvalidated records, basically records you never processed before. And then you would start a job here with this button. You also stop jobs by boarding them, or you also clear them out as well. So that's batch processing. We also support list view processing, so I mentioned that during the slides. So list view. So let's go to take a look at a list of contacts. So you pick a list view, you create your own custom list views in Salesforce. But for example, if I want to see a list of all the contacts, now we're in the list view. And then what you could do in the list view is you could pick and choose which records you want to process through by placing a check next to them. Or you can click this box up here, and then you can select all the records. And then with the list view, you could select up to 200 records, I believe. That's the maximum Salesforce will allow you to select through the list view, up to 200 records. And then once you select the records you want to process through, you click on the Personate button up here, and then they would run it through. And then, so one of the nice things about the list view is you can do filtering as well. So whether you create or edit a new list view, so for example, if I edit this one, you can specify filter criteria, find all contacts that had basically account name under some company, like Melissa Data, and then you could do filtering like that. So one of the things I want to mention is how you set up the list view, how you get the Personator button in the list view. So again, I'm going to go to the Salesforce setup. I want to do a customize. And then for contacts, I want to take a look. This time we're going to be customizing the search layouts. So we go to search layouts. Use the search layout that you want to modify is the list view. So you search for the one list view, you click on the edit. And then you can see here then you'll have the option to add in the buttons. So in this example, I already had it added in here, but when you install Listware for the first time, Personator will be under the available buttons column, and then you just switch it over, add it to the selected buttons column, save that, and then you have the Personate button in there. So those are the 2 ways to batch process records: through the batch processing tab. That will process all records of a certain type, and then you can also do the list view method that will let you pick and choose which records you want to process through. So once you process all those records through, you want to find which ones have been processed through. We do provide a Listware results summary tab up here. So basically this tab is telling you which records have been processed through Listware. And then you see under the Personator tab, we have already processed a bunch of records through. So it's giving you back the address, name, phone, and email along with the results. And then you see in this column here, it's giving you back it gives you back an ID and a link back to the record. So if you click on it, it'll take you directly to the record. You see the results there. Okay. So then one of the things you want to do is one thing I should probably mention is that if you remember, if you take a look back at the mappings, so here for the contact, I created new fields in there, and what I done here is I set it up in a way so that when the records get processed through Listware, they update the fields in the contact object. These fields, these demographics fields I created, these are just basically custom fields. If you take a look at them, so just take a look at, let me do a search here for fields. I want to go to the fields under the contacts. So I'm just showing here that the fields that I mapped in were custom text fields I have added on to the custom object. And then one of the interesting things you could do is you could use the Salesforce's report system to build up reports based on these demographics data. So and that's pretty helpful if you want to segment your Salesforce data by the demographics data that you got in there. So let's go and just, for example, let's build a report. So I'm going to switch to the Reports tab. Let's create a new report, just an example. Let me search for contacts. You can pick any report type, but just for example, let's pick this one. Now here Salesforce is presenting me a way to build up a report. And one of the nice things is you could build and apply filters, specify time ranges and stuff. So this one's displaying all my contacts in here. If we scroll down here, you'll see in the custom info, now I see my custom fields listed down there. Let's see, let's just play around. Let's take the gender, let's add it into the reports view. So you see for the gender, demographics gender. So this is gender that personator that our Listware app has appended into these Salesforce records. So if you want to build a report, let's filter it by gender. So I'm adding in the filter. Let's see, I'm scrolling down to the custom fields. Let's take a look at gender. And then you could do something like gender equals M. And then you see I just updated the report view. And then, so basically it's displaying all my contacts now who are male. I want to get their, let's see, household income. Add that column in there. Now you can see, now we have in our report, the incomes of these people. We can do sorting. So you see here, we have the range of their incomes. Let's see, something else we could do, we could get in their occupation. Let me add in the occupation column. Yeah, so basically this is just an example. You could do build more filters and customize the reports and how you want. But here you can see with the demographic information, you could segment your Salesforce data by various demographic attributes, and then as a way learn more about your customers, try to understand them more, how likely are they to purchase your products based on this type of data and so forth. And that pretty much concludes the demo aspect of this app. Let's switch to question time.
Thank you, Kevin. Now we're moving into the Q&A section of the webinar. So if you have any questions, please type them in now. I wanted to remind you that I'll be sending a link to a recording of today's webinar, and you should expect to receive that via email tomorrow. Okay, let's see what we've got. What is pricing and how do users get charged?
So that's a very good question. So regarding pricing, when you install the app, you will get 1,000 free credits to use during your trial period. But if you need more credits, what you do is you purchase it from us. One thing I want to bring up here, if we go to our website, so if you use our app, let me, Melissa. So if you use our app, we have a credit system basically. So I'm just gonna bring up this page. Melissa. So here you can see we could purchase more credits. This page is giving you a breakdown of the pricing tiers. So here's the pricing for the credits. But regarding the cost of what you do through our app, down here is a table giving you a breakdown of the cost for each action. So basically, different types of actions and fields have different costs associated with them. Today, we've been focusing on demographics, and you can see that depending on the fields that you get back, there's a different type of cost associated with them. But here you see that the credit cost is usually between 1 to 6 credits. Various other actions have their own costs associated with them as well. So that's basically the pricing and how it works.
Okay, let's see. Another question. How often can we expect your app to append in the data?
So that's a good question. So regarding the demographics fields, let me bring up this. Let me bring up this sheet. So what I got up here is a table of fields, the demographic fields we're looking at, and their append rate. So you can see append rate they overlap within the 40% range. But again, this will depend on how good your data is. So during the demo, you saw that as long as you have good addresses, good names in there, so as long as you have good contact information in there, this is the type of append rate that you would typically see. So just leave this up here for a while if people want to look at those over.
Okay, next question is, where do we get our data from?
So that's a very good question as well. Our data is compiled from various sources and industries such as property, loan, credit, telephone, voter data, and several other private sources. The final combined database merges all these contact records, basically merging together the addresses, phone name, and emails, amounting to over 1 billion records of historical and contact information. That data is then exposed through a web service, which is then accessed through our Listware app.
I'm going to give it another minute for any other additional questions to stream in. Okay, it looks like that's all the time we have right now. If you submitted a question that did not get answered, please contact Kevin via email. His information is provided on the screen below. Thank you again for attending today's webinar. Have a great day and see you next time. Bye.